Alright, hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I wanted to go over the code for the daily selfie, so this should be in the daily selfie playlist, hopefully, by the time you get this. And let's just dive in here. So, if you know anything about Android, and I'll try and go slow, but I don't want to waste too much time. So everything kind of gets routed by this XML file, this Android XML file. So let's see, you want to look for the launcher, and this is where everything gets started. So you can see you want to look for the activity that has the launcher category in it, and the main. So when we looked at that activity, you can see that this initially points to my main activity class. So on the left here you can see main activity. So that's where we're going to dive in first. But before we get there, I just want to cover a couple other things that we're going to need for this class. So the reason I have another activity down here, which essentially means another screen, is because I want to display my selfie as a large picture, as a full screen picture. And that's what I'm going to use that activity for. And if you watched my previous tutorial or video on what the Daily Selfie app actually does, there's a couple other things in here that hopefully it'll make sense to you if you've seen that video. So up here, uses feature. This sort of claims that we're going to use the camera feature. And if you don't do that, your app's going to get confused because you're trying to use a camera and didn't know that you were supposed to use it. And so this is requiring that whatever app runs, or I'm sorry, whatever device runs my app needs to have camera, required true. Then the second one, it uses a permission here. So this uses permission write external storage. And so what that means is it's going to ask for permission to write to the external storage. And without that permission, then there's some code in my app that writes the image to your external storage. And without this permission, it can't do that. This little line here just means after SDK version 18, this isn't required anymore. So I just put that in there as a little safety valve. And then the last thing I want to look at is my receiver. So this application, notice it's inside the application brackets. I have a receiver, and it's declaring that this receiver is going to be within the Selfie Alarm Receiver class. Now this might not make sense initially, but what happens is you can broadcast events, and when those events are broadcasted, they can be isolated to your single application, or they can broadcast over your entire device. Now I'm going to be broadcasting, I believe, over the device, and so I need to have another application within my device that's listening for that broadcast, and that's what this says. So my app broadcasts an event, but it also receives that event, and it'll make more sense as we get back down into it. But whenever you want to receive an event, you have to declare this receiver in here so that your app knows when it's broadcast and it hears that event come in. It's like, yep, this is mine. I can respond to this, or no, I can't respond. So let's go ahead. Like I said, this is the launcher activity here. So let's dive into my main activity, and I'm going to try and cover a lot of the things that kind of tripped me up as I went on. So hopefully this isn't too advanced, and hopefully it's not too slow either. And I'm going to just go ahead and get into this. So I declare a few variables, and those will make more sense as we go down. I'll just quickly go over them. This is a request code when I declare on activity for result. And this is a tag for logging. This is the size of my thumbnail. This is how long until I want the event to fire, and how often I want it to fire after that. Then I go down here and I make a list of selfies, and also I declare a Selfie Adapter. Now I initiated this class, and I guess I should probably dive over to it and give it a quick overview. So let's just jump into my Selfie Adapter class right here, and I've got two classes in it. Got it open here. Start at the top. I'm going to minimize these imports because they're not necessary. So you can see here that I extend array adapter. So let's explain what the adapter does. So if you have a view, you can use a certain view called a list view, and let me show you what that looks like. Pop this guy open. Essentially, a list view is a view, here we go, a view of items. So you can see there's an item. Each item has a row. And there's some feature that a list view has, along with a couple others, but I like the list view. You can assign an adapter to the view. So what that means is if you assign an adapter to a list view, then the list is going to show an item for every item in your adapter. So essentially, you don't really have to worry about refreshing the view and setting the view and blah blah blah, because the adapter is going to do that implicitly for you. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. Alright, so let's go down. We were in the adapter, extends array adapter. So I'm saying that this is going to be an adapter, and this is what I'm going to stick on my list view. So for every selfie in my adapter, I'm going to make a row, item 1, item 2, item 3. So context, it's just good to have that context as a reference later on, and then this is a tag for my login. So in my initializer, all I do is I just set the context and do my super, because it's pretty much just like an adapter. And as I go down here, what I wanted to override is this getView method. So when you extend your adapter, you have the option to override this getView method. And so what this is going to do is this is going to initialize the view for my list view. So I guess I'll go ahead and cover this quickly. So what I do is your adapter has a function getItem, and it comes with that. So you can get your item based on your position. So when the view renders, the list view, I'm talking about the main list view, this guy right here, when this renders, it goes to its adapter, and for every item in the adapter, it calls this getView. And this is what it passes to your getView, these 3 parameters. So for the first adapter item, it's going to pass you a position of, I think, 0. So I go and I get this, I get my item from the adapter, that position, and then I generate a selfie based on that item. I'm getting my first selfie. Then I inflate this layout, or I'm sorry, I initiate the inflator. And if you don't know what an inflator is, essentially you can design templates. So for example, each row in the list view is a template because I want it to have an image view, a label for the image name, and also a delete icon. Let me just pull that up. This is my template. As you can see, I have an image view here, and inside this is a linear layout. So I have my image view, my text view, and my delete icon. And every item in my list view that comes from the array adapter is going to have that same template. So we use our layout inflator to inflate that template. Now, until you inflate the template, it's not going to render correctly, or it might not even render at all. So you have to initialize your inflator, and then I create this view holder because it's good for scrolling up and down. Your view holder is going to sort of, I guess you could say, keep it in memory. So that way when you're scrolling up and down, your scrolling is smoother. So if your view items are longer than the screen and you scroll up and down, it's not choppy, it's a smoother scroll. It's just kind of a preference. So you can see here the ConvertView. That's the view that comes in. So this is going to pass in the ConvertView. And I'm going to say, for the ConvertView, I'm going to inflate this image item. And that's the one I just showed you. This whole thing. Image item. So it's going to inflate this whole row and everything in it. So let's go back to our adapter. And then it's going to do it within the context of the parent that was passed. It's not really important to understand that right now, so we'll move on. This false, let me pull up the resource here. So this false is whether or not you want to attach it to the root. I said false. So I initialize my view holder, and then I'm going to go in my view holder and let me just cover the view holder quick. So you can see down here at the bottom I just made a quick class view holder, and then I initialize my image text, my image view, and my image delete icon. That just forces you, when you're using this view holder, it forces you to use those 3 things. Okay. Or allows you to, I guess. So your view holder, I'm going to initialize my image item, my image text to my image delete icon. So I go into my ConvertView, which is the view that was passed, the view that was inflated here. I'm going to find my item image, item text, and button delete. And one more time, this ID is put right here in front, item image. This one is item text. This one is item or button delete. So I'm inflating those, and I'm sorry, I inflated the row, and then for each of these items, I'm storing them in the view holder. And then at the end, I'm just setting the tag of the ConvertView to say, essentially when you set the tag for a view, you're saying this has a view holder. And so you can see if the ConvertView is null, if there's nothing there, I go ahead and set the tag. But if it's not null, then I just get the tag, which means there's already a view holder there. I'm just getting it back. And then there's no reason to do all this initialization that I did up here, or the inflator. If there's already a ConvertView, then there's no reason to do all that. So I'm just getting the tag, and when I get the tag, it's going to already have all that information in it. So then I go down here, and if you remember, I got the selfie at the top. So I'm saying if the selfie is not null, if there's something there, that means if the adapter is doing what it's supposed to do and giving me a good selfie, then I go to the view holder image item and I set the image bitmap, which is setting an image view, and I'm setting it to selfie.getImage, and I'll go over the selfie methods after we get through this adapter class. Then I go in the image text and I do selfie.getName. These are custom methods that I declared in the selfie class, so we'll go over those in a little bit. Pretty simple stuff. Then I'm going to set an on-click listener, and this is to initialize the full selfie. So if you click on the row, it should pop you up into a full screen view of the selfie. So here's my logging, and then I'm going to make an intent to view, and then I'm going to go ahead and parse my file. Now, this isn't going to make sense initially. However, I return the absolute path from my selfie with this custom function here in my selfie class. And so what I'm saying is go ahead and parse, and then it's looking for a file. This is just to tell it that it's a file in the external. And then I get the full path, and then I state that it's only images. So I'm looking for images, and that's what the set data and type is looking for. And then I go ahead and start that activity with the intent. So let's move on to the next little part. So I'm going to go ahead and set the on-click listener for the entire row, and I'm going to go ahead and also do it for the image item, just because I want to make sure if I click on the image, it'll also open up that full selfie. And then I'm going to have a different click listener for the delete because I want to delete it. So I go ahead and I build this alert dialog. So I call alert dialog.builder, and I tell it I'm doing it on my context. And if you remember, context is passed from the main activity. So whenever I say context, I'm referring to the main activity, which essentially is saying build a new alert dialog, but do it for the main activity. So I'm going to show it on the main activity. So then I set my title, set my message. This is a positive button, so if they click yes, then I'm gonna do delete selfie, which I declared on here. If they click no, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to leave it blank. And then after I'm done, I go ahead and create it, which when you call create on the alert dialog.builder, it creates an alert dialog. And then I'm going to show that alert dialog. So this is all what happens when you click the delete. And then I'll just go ahead and return that view. So here's your view with all the click listeners on it. And this, when you return your ConvertView, this is what gets pushed into the list view. So item 1 is going to be, item 2 is going to be this, and item 3, and so on. So I'll go into the delete selfie method. So you get your get file path, which is a selfie method that we declare. And we're creating a file, which essentially just means like file information, like a file path, file name, maybe size, I'm not sure. then I say if the file exists, then I'm going to say selfie deleted, and I'm going to delete that file. Actually, this should probably be inside here. Push that over there. I don't want to delete it if it doesn't exist. And then I'll go ahead and put this in here as well. So essentially, this is going to delete the file from your external storage, and this is going to remove it from your adapter. This referring to the adapter because we are in the adapter class right here. Okay. Then I'm also going to notify my adapter that the dataset has changed. It will update itself, therefore updating the list view. And that's pretty much it. So it seemed like a lot of information, felt like I was saying a lot, but if it doesn't make sense, I guess try it out for yourself and see if you can get through it. So let's move on to, I wanted to show you guys a selfie. So I'm going to pop open the selfie class here and show you the custom methods that are very simple. So when I declare a selfie, I'm looking for a path, a name, and an image. And I set those in the constructor, and then get path is just you're getting your path, getting your image, getting your name. Pretty simple. Okay, so now we've talked about the selfie adapter and the selfie. So the majority of it should make sense, but I want to go back to the main activity and just continue on here. I create my storage path, and this was kind of an interesting little string. Your environment dot get external storage public directory, and then you have to give it a constant or an integer here to tell it what kind of external you're looking for. So I'm looking for directory pictures. So I'm going to use this later on to store my pictures and also to get my pictures. It's going to look at this path. Alright, so let's go into the onCreate method. So I do a super call, and then I'm going to set my content view to this r.layout.activityMain, and I showed you that here. That's essentially just my list view. So I'm setting the initial look of it to my list view. Then I'm going to call this function called getSelfies, and I've got that down here at the bottom. So in my getSelfies method, I'm going to receive a list, and this is a list of selfies. And I'm going to check and see if that's null, and I'm going to check to see if my storage path exists. Then I'm going to clear it out, and then I'm going to say for each file in my storage path, and I'm going to filter those files, and I created a class for that. And it's pretty simple, so I'll just jump back and forth to it pretty quickly. So you just give it a file.getName that starts with selfie. So essentially I'm just filtering it by everything that starts with selfie. And this is the method that it looks for accepting files. So by saying new filter, it's saying only get the files that start with selfie. And this is the path. And then it's going to say for each file that starts with selfie that's in this path, it's going to add a new selfie, and this is, I'm going to call this selfie constructor. I'm going to pass it a get absolute path from the file. So for each file I'm doing this. And then also I'm going to call this get selfie thumbnail, and I'll get to that in a second. It's a scaling method. And then also file.getName, which is an implicit function for files. So here's where I create each new selfie. So that returns, or that doesn't return anything, it sets it to this variable that I declared when I first started the class. So it's just going to add, it's going to clear it, and then it's going to add each file to the list and create a couple of different variables based on the file name, path, and image bitmap. So quickly going over this get selfie thumbnail. So it starts out declaring thumb sizes, and then it uses this bitmap factory.options class, which is a way you can declare your bitmap for building the bitmap. And I'm going to declare this. I'm going to declare this function on it. Then I'm going to go into decode file. So I'm going to decode my file with those options. I'm going to set the width and height. So this is sort of making it a smaller thumbnail. And then set the scale factor. And then go down here and set a couple other options, which you can read about by looking up a bitmap factory.options Android. And then it's going to return the decoded file of that photo path. Alright. So let's go back up to my main create method. So I'm going to create a new adapter, and I'm going to use this class, which is main activity, and the adapter is going to refer to my image item XML, which is just this single row. So it's essentially saying each item in the adapter is going to refer to a whole one of these image item layouts. And then also you have to give it the main text field. I'm not actually quite sure why you have to. It's got something to do with it tries to implicitly set strings or something. I just know that it broke for me when I didn't set it, and so I tried this based on some research that I did, and it seems to work. And then you have to give it the list that you want this adapter to refer to. So as before when we got selfies and stored them in Selfie List, now we're setting this adapter to the Selfie List. Okay. So essentially, by creating your Selfie adapter, you're binding your Selfie List to this view, and to the list view, of course. So then we do set onNotifiedChange true, and that essentially means whenever anything's changed on the Selfie adapter, it'll go ahead and update itself. And then we're going to instantiate our list view, and that way we can set our adapter from the list view to the Selfie adapter. So long story short, list view gets bound to Selfie List, and that's what we want. Just some little scaling and massaging that goes on in between there to make it look how you want it to look. So the last thing I do is I call this set alarm, and that's on down here at the bottom. So in set alarm, I create an intent, and this is going to be going to my Selfie alarm receiver class. So it creates an intent. It actually stores it as a pending intent, and so it's going to broadcast itself. Pending intent means this is going to happen in the future, and I'm going to let somebody else go ahead and fire this intent off. So if you're going to shoot an intent in the future, you're going to create a pending intent, and the pending intent is going to get a broadcast. So if you haven't figured it out yet, this intent is going to be passed to whatever class is receiving the broadcast. And then the intent's going to refer to main activity. This is what it's going to start up. It's going to start up my main activity, and it's going to use the notification intent. Okay, so essentially in the end, it's going to fire up this Selfie alarm receiver. So then I'm going to start up my alarm manager to set up my alarm, and that's just a get system service. I'm going to set up a repeating alarm, and it's going to wake up the device if it's asleep. And it's going to initially fire at system.currentTime milliseconds plus 2 minutes, and it's going to repeat every 2 minutes, and it's going to utilize this alarm intent. So what this says is it's going to start up an alarm, and it's going to hide in the background up into 2 minutes and repeat every 2 minutes. At 2 minutes, it's going to shoot up this alarm intent, and the alarm intent is going to say, okay, well, we're getting a broadcast. We are going to start up main activity, and we're going to use this notification intent. So notification intent says, all right, so from main activity, we're going to start up self alarm receiver. So let's look at Selfie alarm receiver. So you can see that this extends a broadcast receiver, which we're telling it we want this class to be a receiver class, and so that forces you to override this onReceive method. So this onReceive method is going to start up an intent. It's going to start up a pending intent from that initial intent, and it's going to start the main activity. So you can see that this pending intent is going to get activity. It's going to start it from the context, which, if you remember, it's the main activity. It's going to use the selfie intent, which is essentially saying start up the main activity. It's going to update. This little flag here just says update yourself if you have new information. Then we're going to build our notification with some of these options using the pending selfie intent. We're going to set our small icon, which, by the way, if you don't set an icon in your notification builder, it will not work. To Took me a long time to figure that out. You must set an icon. And then we're going to go ahead and build it. This auto cancel just means when you click on it, it goes away. And we're going to grab our notification manager, and the notify method is going to go ahead and push that notification into the notification bar up top. So I guess I don't have it running, but up at the top you'll see like a tiny little notification. Like if you get a text message or something, it notifies you. It's like that. That's a notification manager push. Alright, so we're almost done. I want to cover one more thing in my main activity, just some simple thing. I'm going to scroll up here, and I want to cover this on options item selected. So just a preface here. You can see this extends my action bar activity, and that means it's going to utilize the action bar, which is, on my app, it was just the title and then the camera icon that you click on to take a picture. So whenever you extend the action bar activity, it allows you to use these two methods. The first one is on create options menu, which grabs an inflator and inflates your menu. So this is your menu main. This is what the XML looks like. It's just a standard icon layout. You can see I've got one item here, and it's my camera icon, and you set a little title. And then on option items selected, that's when you click on it. And then you can tell it what to do. So I said if my ID is my action pick ID, which is what I set up, I start up a new intent and action image capture, and this is for starting up your camera. So when I click that camera icon, it starts up the camera on your phone. And so I go ahead and say resolve activity means if the intent is, if someone responded to that intent, go ahead and do this stuff. So you set up a file and you create your image file, which I showed you guys down there. Create image file right here. It essentially sets up a string file path for the file, and then it creates a temp file in that storage path. Alright, so create a file and store it in file. If it fails, it goes ahead and kicks you out and gives you an error. And then, but if it says photo file is not null, that means it worked. It's going to go ahead and put an extra. So when you pass this URI from file, essentially you're passing a URI. So it's creating a URI from the file path that you've created from your create image file method. A lot to say, but it's really not that complicated. It creates a URI from a file path. You're putting it as an extra output. So whenever you start up the camera, it looks for this here. It looks for this URI set as an extra output, and it will store the image that gets saved into this file path. So if you remember, I stored up my external storage, and this is pretty much what we're referencing. And then you start up your activity for result with that pick request code, and on the activity result here. So when the camera's done, it's going to call this method, the onActivityResult, and that's just part of this start activity for result process. That when it's finished, it calls this guy. And then I say if my request code is pick request code, so if those two match, it's going to go ahead and say, okay, is the result okay? Did everything work fine? Alright, go ahead and update the selfie list, which essentially that just goes down and gets selfies again, so pretty much it clears your selfie list and it's going to repopulate it based on the first method we looked at. And these are just some extra handlers in case the result was canceled or something else bad happened. So that was a lot for one video, but I realize it might be a little bit complicated, but I wanted to get it out there for you. And if there's anything that you need to be cleared up, if you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll try and get back with it. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys got something from this, so thanks. Bye.